Jeff. It's good to be here in the park. These parks add a lot to the quality of life here in Albuquerque. Welcome back to Southwest Yard and Garden. I'm Curtis Smith. Today we're here in one of the parks in Albuquerque with Jeff Hart. Jeff is the urban forester for the Albuquerque Parks Department, and he manages a lot of trees. We're going to ask him about these trees today. Jeff, I see here we've got a lot of trees.
Yeah, Curtis, we have probably over 90 different varieties, types of trees here, both deciduous trees and conifer trees. And we think it's a real good example of a place for the public to go and learn and see the different types of trees that they can grow.
So they can go to the park, see some trees they like, find out what they like, and use those types of trees at home.
That's right. Most all these trees here will grow around their home.
And all over many parts of New Mexico, maybe not all of the state, but in large parts of the state.
Right, most all of these will grow everywhere around, other than, you know, the colder, farther north or farther south. But as we go through some of the trees, we'll talk about which ones I feel that won't grow in certain parts of the state and which ones will.
Well, let's go look at some trees.
Okay.
Jeff, this is an interesting little tree. I've seen a few around town, but this is not real common here.
Yeah, Curtis, this is a Littleleaf Linden. It's one of my favorite trees. It has a real pretty creamy white flower in the springtime.
Smell good?
It smells real good. It's a very good dense shade tree. Will do pretty well here in Albuquerque. You've got to watch the edges. Don't put it in a location where it's real hot. Mm-hmm. The edges of the leaves do tend sometimes to scorch out and get brown. But all in all, it's a pretty pest-free tree and a real good tree.
How large does it get at maturity?
Probably here in Albuquerque, it will get 25 feet, 30 feet here.
Nice tree.
The only thing to watch out for on the lindens, to be aware of, the bees do like the linden trees.
Yes.
So if you don't like bees in the springtime, maybe it's not the tree for you.
Okay. Well, let's go look at this ginkgo right over here.
Okay.
Jeff, this ginkgo is doing pretty well. It's a small tree right now, but becomes large. And this is an ancient tree from China.
Yeah, Curtis, this is a ginkgo biloba, same tree that people use for medicinal purposes, for ginkgo for memory retention, but they use the roots for this tree. But this is a great specimen tree out in the yard, and it does fairly well here. It does, however, grow slower than a lot of other trees. It will take a little bit of time for this tree to get up there.
And there are male and female trees, and you don't want the female tree, do you?
Right. The female tree smells very obnoxious, so you don't want to plant that.
Produces a fruit that it makes a very bad smell.
Right.
You don't want it.
Right.
But it takes a long time for it to bear fruit.
It takes almost 20 years for a ginkgo tree actually to produce the fruit. So sometimes you need to make sure at the nursery that you get a specific male tree and don't get the female.
Okay. Well, let's go look at that desert willow over here. Well, this desert willow is looking really nice. Still small, but growing.
Yeah, Curtis, desert willow is one of our native trees here in New Mexico. Does very well. As you can see on it, it's got real pretty flowers most of the summer, almost all summer long, and it's a pollen-free tree. It's fertilized by the bees and other insects, so it doesn't produce the pollen. Will get up pretty good size. Initially we thought 15, 20 feet, but I've seen some here in town 20, 25 feet tall. Real good tree. Excellent tree for Albuquerque.
Blooms all summer and attracts hummingbirds.
Right.
Well, let's go look at its relative, the Chitalpa tree.
Okay.
This Chitalpa looks pretty good. It's still small and growing like a lot of the other trees here in the park.
Yeah.
It's a nice tree.
Yeah, Curtis, a Chitalpa is a cross between a desert willow, the last tree we just looked at, and a western catalpa.
And it shows by looking at the flower.
Yes.
Very similar.
We don't really have any real large mature ones that we know of here in Albuquerque, but some of the newer ones that we've planted are already growing at a very fast pace, and we think that it's going to be a very large tree.
Be a good choice. And larger leaf than the desert willow, more shade.
Right. Real good, fast-growing tree. Chitalpas do have to be watched like a desert willow in the wintertime, however, Curtis. There is some freeze damage. If it gets too cold, you have to be very careful with this tree that it doesn't dry out in the wintertime and freeze back. It is possible.
Oh, and what's this I see over here? Let's go take a look at that one.
Okay.
Well, now here's an interesting tree that you don't see very often in Albuquerque.
Yeah, this is a mountain ash, Curtis.
The true mountain ash.
The true mountain ash, it sure is. And you can look at one of the real important features on this is the fruit, the orange fruit. It's very attractive. The mountain ash is in the rose family, like a lot of your apples, pears, and other trees. So it has a lot of the same characteristics. You can see the bark. It's about a medium-sized tree. It won't get real large here, possibly at the most between 15, 20 feet tall here.
And unlike this one, I suspect they'll prefer to be in a little bit more shaded location.
They do. They will get a little bit of leaf scorch if they're out in the direct sun. So it does like to be more of an understory type tree and get a little bit of shade.
Okay, well, let's go look at this one over here now.
Okay.
Well, here's a tree a lot of people like, but it's a tree with a lot of problems too.
Yeah, this is the Mimosa tree, or the silk tree, a lot of people will call it, Curtis.
Yeah, or some people call it albizia, or silk tree albizia.
Right. Very pretty in the summertime. You can see the pink plumes on it. It's very attractive. People like it. It's a very desirable tree for people. It does, however, have some problems.
Yeah, some disease problems and health problems. Some people have a hard time growing it, and others grow it very well.
Yeah. It is kind of difficult. It seems to be one that likes to be planted later in the spring than the early part. It likes it warmer and seems to do better in warmer climates.
Well, Jeff, there's a lot of interesting trees here in the park, but if somebody were to see one they liked and wanted to go to the store and buy one just like it, how do they know what it is? Because there's no label on the trees.
Curtis, currently the city of Albuquerque is inventorying all the parks in the city with this little system down here. This is a GPS system, data inputter. It's called Global Positioning Satellite. It gets the points and the locations of the trees through the satellites up in the sky. At the same time, we inventory what type of tree, the size, the height, the insect and pest problems. On this one, we might identify elm leaf beetle on there, and condition of the tree, and a lot of other information. After we do that, we can produce this little map that we have here. It shows the park and all the different trees, and then we also have a data sheet along with that will tell you each tree and what they are and all the information about the tree.
You could make this larger, so if I want to know what that tree right there is, I
can individually show you that, and then I can also give you all the information about that tree. So anybody can walk around the park with those sheets, and they can see how the tree's doing, what type of tree it is, the condition, and the pests and other problems that hit those type of trees.
So where could someone get a copy of this map, or a map with the information they want?
Anybody can call the City of Albuquerque at Park Management at 857-8650 and ask for me, Jeff Hart. They're in the office, and we can send them a copy of the maps. We don't have everything completed right now, but the ones that we have, and as we get more and more done, we will send anybody that wants information about the trees and the parks.
It's a really good service, but I'll warn you, he is working in the parks a lot, so you may have to call a few times to catch him in the office.